Everything changed began with a silence so heavy it felt louder than any scream, the kind of silence that settles into a man's chest when he has already lost too much and is afraid of losing one thing more. Daniel Harris stood alone in a corner of a glittering office celebration, watching the city lights bleed through tall glass windows, his tie slightly crooked, his shoulders carrying years of exhaustion that no suit could hide. He was known as dependable, quiet, invisible, the kind of man people trusted with deadlines and responsibilities but never bothered to truly see. A single father, a widower before 35, and a survivor of a life that had demanded strength even when he had nothing left to give, Daniel had learned how to stand still in storms without asking why the rain kept falling on him. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel if you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet strength that goes unnoticed. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this connect hearts across the world. Daniel's days began before sunrise and ended long after his small apartment lights went out. Mornings were a blur of packing lunches, tying shoelaces, and leaving encouraging notes for his 8-year-old son Ethan, who believed his father was the strongest man alive even when Daniel felt like he was barely holding himself together. Nights were spent answering emails after Ethan fell asleep, revisiting memories of a love he lost too soon, and promising himself that tomorrow would be easier even when he knew it probably wouldn't be. His job as a financial analyst kept him afloat, but his heart stayed anchored in responsibility, grief, and a quiet hope he never dared to name. At the center of the office world Daniel navigated stood Rebecca Collins, his boss, a woman admired for her sharp mind, ambition, and unbreakable confidence. She was everything Daniel was not allowed to be: bold, carefree, and unafraid to take space in a room. To him, she was simply his manager, someone he respected from a distance, someone whose approval he worked hard to earn because stability meant everything when a child depended on you. He never imagined that she noticed him beyond spreadsheets and performance reviews, never suspected that behind her confident smiles and professional composure, she carried her own loneliness and unspoken regrets. The celebration that night was meant to be harmless, a company milestone marked by music, laughter, and too many drinks. Daniel almost didn't attend, knowing how uncomfortable he felt in spaces where people forgot their limits, but he went anyway because saying no felt like risking the fragile balance of his career. As the night stretched on, the room grew louder and the lights dimmer, and Daniel found himself pulled into a moment he was not prepared for. Rebecca, clearly drunk and unsteady in ways Daniel had never seen, crossed a line she herself would not remember clearly the next morning. In that moment, when surprise collided with instinct, Daniel chose restraint over impulse, dignity over desire, and respect over confusion. He did not take advantage of vulnerability, not his own and not hers, because he had spent too many years teaching his son what real strength looked like. What followed was not immediate clarity but weeks of tension, silence, and self-doubt. Rebecca avoided him at work, buried herself in professionalism, and Daniel wondered if he had jeopardized everything by being decent in a world that rarely rewards it. Bills piled up, Ethan needed braces, and Daniel lay awake at night questioning whether integrity had cost him the security his family depended on. Yet something subtle began to change. Rebecca started noticing him differently, not as an employee but as a human being who had boundaries, values, and a depth she had overlooked. Conversations grew longer, eye contact lingered, and a quiet respect replaced awkward distance. As seasons changed, so did the rhythm between them. Rebecca learned about Ethan, about bedtime stories and school projects, about the wife Daniel had loved and lost, and about the nights he sat in his car just to breathe before going upstairs so his son would never see his tears. Daniel, in turn, saw beyond Rebecca's authority and ambition, discovering a woman who feared being truly known, who had built walls so high she had forgotten what it felt like to let someone in sober, intentional, and unafraid. Their connection grew slowly, carefully, built not on stolen moments or blurred lines but on trust, patience, and mutual respect. Life tested them relentlessly. Office gossip whispered, old wounds resurfaced, and Daniel struggled with guilt over allowing himself to feel again. He worried about what loving again would mean for Ethan, feared that happiness was something he might lose twice if he reached for it. Rebecca battled her own demons, confronting past mistakes and learning to forgive herself for moments she wished she could erase. Together, they learned that love was not about perfect timing but about choosing each other with clear eyes and honest hearts. Just before the story reaches its final breath, leave a comment telling us whether you believe people can grow into the love they once weren't ready for, because your thoughts add life to stories like this. In the end, what saved them was not a dramatic confession or a flawless romance but consistency, kindness, and the courage to show up sober to life and love. Daniel did not become someone new, he simply allowed himself to be seen as he was, a devoted father, a man of principles, and a heart that had survived loss without becoming bitter. Rebecca learned that leadership meant accountability not just at work but in her own emotions, and that real connection required clarity, not escape. When Ethan finally smiled at the sight of Rebecca helping with homework at the kitchen table, Daniel understood that healing was not forgetting the past but building something gentle on top of it. If this story touched your heart, stirred something quiet inside you, or reminded you that goodness still matters even when no one is watching, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Because your engagement keeps stories like this alive and reminds us all that second chances are real when we meet them with honesty and courage.